Hi, everyone. I'm Claire Liu, and I'm the CEO of Know Your Company. And today we have with me a really special guest. We have the CEO of Lonely Planet, Daniel Houghton. And Daniel and I met, I want to say last year over dinner. And I was
Last summer, yeah.
yeah, last summer, exactly. And I was so impressed by Daniel's story. He took over as the CEO of this huge travel book company when he was 23 or 24 years old. And his first task that he faced and that he shared actually at dinner was having to lay off 75 people. And so Daniel's definitely been through a lot. He's also really taken the company to really, really big things. I was reading that you guys have improved tremendously in both digital and in print, and the company was originally struggling when you first took over. So just honored to have you here, Daniel, and excited to learn from you.
Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. So I've got this one question, Daniel, that I've been asking everyone about leadership and want your take. And it's what's something you wish you would have learned earlier as a leader?
Um, Mine is probably very obvious, but probably just some actual sort of core business school style skills. I know that sounds really wacky. I have an
Yeah.
arts degree. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree, so I had no formal training of any kind. I didn't go to business school. I don't have an MBA. Um, Yeah, so that would have helped the baptism by fire a little
Hmm.
bit, getting up to speed. My instinct was to say accounting, because as a manager, you spend so much time looking at numbers and I guess just data and analytics.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a learning curve for me, probably more than anything. Most of the sort of interpersonal skills or emotional intelligence style skills, I think I did okay with. I've always got along with a lot of people. I used to be a journalist. You have to work with different people every day, telling their stories for a living.
Yep.
So all of that was fine. And then, I say that I just spent a week at Harvard Business School as an executive education program. And it was an incredible week. I didn't know how much I was going to get out of it, but
Hmm.
and not that it was a beginner course to business or anything. It was pretty advanced stuff, but it was fascinating, and I love education. So if I could have hit the pause button and gone and gotten or spent some more time, on some of that stuff, that's probably what I would have done.
That is, in some ways, it's refreshing actually to hear. I think you, of all the, I've done quite a few of these. I think you're the first person to admit that. I think a lot of us, honestly, as CEOs and managers, feel that way. Like, was there some book I was supposed to read? Was there some school
Yeah,
I was supposed to go to learn this stuff? And I mean, so I guess my question is, well, how did you end up learning? Well, what would you say, aside from accounting, those core business skills were? And then how
yeah.
did you try to ramp up your education around them? Was it finding mentors? Was it taking online classes? Was it just Googling, the shit out of something? That's what I do. Like when I don't know something, like how much
There's a
to
lot
pay
of
someone,
Googling.
like I Google, like how much do I pay? Like yeah, it's a
Yeah,
thing.
there was a lot of searches. No, I mean, luckily there's a lot of really talented people in the business. I mean, our CFO basically taught me accounting, taught me how to read
Yes.
P&L on day one.
Yep.
Absolute true story. And the rest of it, I just kind of had to pick up as I went along um, from a bunch of different methods. I do love to read, and I read a lot of books.
Hmm.
Also, if you hire the right people, you don't have to know how to do everything, but you do need to be able to learn from those people.
Hmm.
So that, and then a whole laundry list of mentors, as you can imagine. And yeah, it's just you just have to have a desire to learn if you're going to function in a role like that, or it's going to be over pretty quick, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, so because Lonely Planet today, and we were chatting before this, you were saying is almost 400 people, right? And you're spread out across five different continents. I mean, when you first became CEO and you knew that, okay, maybe, I haven't been to business school, I don't know some of these things. What was sort of your first approach to trying to gain that knowledge from folks, or what did you say to employees to sort of, I mean, was there apprehension, right, about you coming on board, and how did you sort of negotiate that, the sort of early transition?
Yeah, I think there was probably a healthy amount of apprehension, um, and there probably would have been from me too if I was in that position. Um, yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't spend that much time thinking about it.
Hmm.
There was too much kind of to do,
Yep.
so you kind of tackle a little bit of it every day, and figure it out as you go. Or not, and then you drown and it doesn't work.
Yes. We've been
The
all
only
there. Yeah.
alternative really is that it doesn't work, and that's not good for anybody, especially your employees. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I came out and said, obviously I have no business education, but here I am. But tried to have, and still try to have a real, uh, I don't know, culture of, that ideas can come from anywhere,
Mm.
and that they're welcomed and that they're heard. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily followed. We can't follow every idea, but we try to listen to them all, and at least give some feedback. So yeah.
Absolutely. So for new managers, and there's a lot of folks who who follow the heartbeat, who are getting promoted for the first time into an executive role, and have a little bit of imposter syndrome around the fact that many of us, including myself, have never been to business school or haven't had quote unquote the formal education. I mean, what advice would you give to folks? And I know you've touched on this a little bit, but any sort of recommendations? I mean, do you feel like everyone then needs to go to business school or needs some sort of formal education necessarily, or what's your advice to new managers and incoming executives?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think everyone has to do anything. Everyone learns in a different way, and um, people are at all different levels of preparedness when they get put in roles like that.
Sure.
I think the worst thing that could happen is someone could think that they're too prepared. There's a lot of people that have been to business school and are way smarter than I'll ever be, but they can't even talk to people,
Sure.
or they actually can't stop talking long enough to listen, which I
Sure.
think more important. Yeah, I mean, that's the only way that I've survived is just personal skills. And I don't think that gets talked about as much as kind of the other pieces of it do. So
Hmm.
I would try to focus on that, and find, it doesn't have to be a mentor or someone that's been in that role, but you have to have people that you can turn to that will be really honest with you and that can give you some feedback, whether or not they have expertise in your industry or maybe they're not even a business person. I didn't grow up playing football or organized sports, but one of my best mentors is a longtime football coach, of kind of young kids in middle school and stuff and high school, and you can learn a lot from people that have just been around all different kinds of people their entire lives and understand how people think. So yeah, don't think it has to come out of some MBA program or something like that, or they have to be an ex-CEO mentor.
Right.
You'll be surprised kind of what you can find and learn from other people.
Absolutely. Well, I think when I reflect on that, some of the greatest business lessons I've learned are from, my parents who,
Yeah,
you know,
me too.
or, from my brother, my younger brother, or, from neighbors. And I think there's definitely a fallacy around, or a myth around, this idea that there's some leadership education you get a certificate for, and then you know X, Y, and Z. So I appreciate you sharing that, encouraging folks to have
Yeah,
just an openness to learn from wherever that learning might come from. So one thing you touched on, Daniel, was this idea that it's the people skills, right? You said the people skills that don't get talked about enough in leadership. Well, and that's been the only way you've been able to survive in a lot of ways, or thrive. So tell me about that. What do you think as leaders we overlook when it comes to people skills, and what do we need to be focusing more on?
yeah. I think it's really important to try to put yourself in other people's shoes, which is easier said than done. You think that you can, but you don't really know what's going on, and most of it's none of your business.
Yeah.
In their life. But as much as you can imagine yourself in that sort of position, and try to think about what it must be like to present to you or to be trying to get something, across the line. The hardest conversations are when you believe in the idea, but you just can't do it for whatever reason it is.
Right.
And so I think if you can put yourself in other people's shoes and I guess really try to understand, what motivates people.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating when you start paying attention and try to understand what makes people tick.
Yes.
And that helps you understand why some people only ever care about what the next promotion is, whereas some are really happy in their jobs as long as we're moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, different people value different things. And I think some organizations tend to value employees only in one way if they value a certain set of things. And it's good to have a good mix of that in any organization. It doesn't matter if it's a, baseball team or a giant global business.
Right.
I think, obviously diversity of all kinds is important, but
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to personalities, I think it's really, really important.
Absolutely. So one thing I talked about at the very beginning of this interview, and that I mentioned because I will always remember the story that you told over dinner of having to, you know, execute a bunch of layoffs as one of your first tasks as CEO. Um, tell me about what you'd recommend for other CEOs and managers who are faced in the same situation, right? Maybe not at that scale, but of
It's bad whatever scale it's at.
yeah, absolutely. How did you try to think about handling that? Are there things you wish you would have done differently? Were you proud of the way you handled that situation? I think everyone who's in a leadership role is hungry for so much advice around the right way to let people go.
Yeah. Am proud of the way that I handled it because I did everything that I could.
Hmm.
And I told, you know, you sort of always say, tell the truth as much as you can. Well, that's obvious, but sometimes there's things you can't say,
Hmm.
or you can't share, but you try to do as much as you can. And excuse me, that's not so that other people see your point of view and then get it. It's just so that, if that's going to go on, as many circumstances as you can help them understand, or to the group, and it's just as important as the ones that you don't let go. Sometimes the people that you're letting go, you may have this like big speech prepared, and you realize a couple seconds into it that it's just set in, and they're now shocked, and you just need to shut up now, because
Yeah.
it's over. And sometimes people need some space. I've never been like, oh, I have no idea what that feels like. It feels really shitty on both ends, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you have to read the situation. But then to the people that, when you're trying to explain it to the rest of the staff, as much information and honesty as possible goes a long way, a really long way. And that may sound like common sense, but I think there's organizations a lot of times where those things happen and there's not actually a lot of explanation as to why it happened, or you don't have to get into why these specific people, but you do have to address kind of the overall situation, and it takes a much longer than you think it's going to if it's more than a couple people. If it is any percentage of your organization of any size, whether you're again a 10-person company or 1,000, you got to spend way more time than you think that you do with the team, helping
Right.
them understand what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, I love that thought to err on the side of more honesty and transparency, because I think it's natural instinct around any tense decision. We have a habit of closing up, right? And thinking that it'll gloss over or we've said enough.
And it
And
will, but that doesn't
yeah,
mean it's the right way to do it. Yeah,
right.
yeah, and it can damage your organization a lot if you do things that way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being so candid and sharing with us
Sure.
the lessons that
Yeah.
you've learned. And it's been awesome to see everything you've done with Lonely Planet. What a great company it is. And thanks so much again, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.